Hey, this is Heidi Dawson. If you love all things health and wellness and style of any kind, hang out here with me each week. I'm obsessed with never ending improvement, and it's all in an effort to help each one of us live a wildly successful lifestyle. Subscribe today so you don't miss a thing.
Hi, guys. Welcome to episode 452 of the Wildly Successful Lifestyle Podcast. You are probably here because you're someone who wants to thrive. I like to think that anyway. Regardless, I'm happy we're hanging out and thank you for being here. As always, subscribe so you don't miss an episode. I publish twice a week, Monday and Friday, and each episode is usually under 10 minutes and always packed full of ideas on how to thrive. Now, you wouldn't want to miss that, would you? So hit the subscribe or follow the show. And as always, thank you from the bottom of my heart. All right, so I wonder how many of you have a scar that's still there from when you got hurt as a kid. Maybe you fell off your bike or needed stitches. Maybe you ran into an open dishwasher like Eric, my husband, did when he was 5 years old, and there was a knife pointed up, and he ended up in the emergency room getting stitches on his hand. I bet we all have some story like that, and maybe we still have the scar, maybe we don't. I have a faint line on my pointer finger from kindergarten. I still remember we had this really heavy door to the one little bathroom in our classroom. And one day, somehow I got my finger smashed in the door. Now, I still remember being so upset that they had to call my mom and dad to come get me. And it took them a minute to get there. And by the time they picked me up, I had fallen asleep from being so stressed. I still have that scar 45 years later. I mean, it healed, of course, but for many years I had a bump and a scar, and now it's just a faint little scar. Now, my big sister, she would fall off her bike or scuff her knee or get a little cut. But when she would get a cut and it would sort of scab over, she'd always pick at it. I never did that. But I remember my mom saying, it's not going to heal if you keep picking at it. Eventually, it would scar, but it would take longer because she would always pick at it and probably scarred a little bit deeper. But some people will get their scars fixed so that they don't see them anymore. But it doesn't mean the accident didn't happen, right? It just means you don't see the scar anymore. I feel like emotional scarring is kind of like that, isn't it? You don't see it, but it doesn't mean it's not there. It also is true that the more you pick at it, the harder it is to heal and the deeper the scar. I was listening to Jeff Warren's guided meditation this week on the Calm app, and he was talking about scars and how oftentimes people feel like they have this wound that won't heal, an emotional wound that won't heal. But he offered that what if you just viewed it instead as a scar? It's healed, but it's part of your story. And I liked that. Sometimes something happens and we just can't let it go. We keep picking at it, so to speak, so that it just never heals. I feel like I've done that in the past. And when I finally just accepted it as part of my story, it healed. It's been 6 years since my sister, I talk about my sister a lot, the one that doesn't have anything to do with us, but it's been 6 years since my sister told me we weren't going to be part of her and her family's life. And for the first few years, it was really hard to accept because in my mind, the injustice was so big. I hadn't done anything to deserve that. So I kept dwelling on it. I had bad thoughts about her. I would create scenarios of how I hoped it would backfire in my head. I dragged it with me everywhere I went. I never allowed it to scar over because I kept picking at it. It really wasn't until I got coached personally by Brooke Castillo of the Life Coach School that I realized I had become the problem. So yes, something happened that was unfair, but was I going to let that ruin the rest of my life? Was I going to spend the rest of my life nursing a wound that wouldn't heal because I wouldn't let it? Well, for a minute it appeared I might, until someone boldly told me to stop playing the victim to a circumstance in which I didn't control. Stop being a victim to a circumstance that the only power it holds is the one that I give it. And once I accepted it as part of my story and stopped sort of dragging it around, stopped picking at it, so to speak, it healed. And now it's just a faint scar that I notice periodically, and there's a twinge of pain, of course, but it's no longer affecting my day-to-day life or my other relationships. It's simply just part of my lived experience. It's part of who I am today. It's made me stronger, and I'm proud of that. And I know some of you guys have similar experiences, and some of them are a lot worse than what happened to me. But you're still allowing it to affect your life today. But letting it heal doesn't mean it didn't happen. It just means you're not a victim to it anymore. And that's where our work lies. How do you experience an injustice and not let it affect the rest of your life? You do that by taking away its power, by letting it heal, and by accepting it as part of your story, a part that made you stronger, a part that made you into the strong, resilient person that you are today. My challenge to you today is to resist the urge to pick the scab off past emotional wounds. Allow them to heal. Allow them to leave a scar. And remember, a scar is just an injury or wound that's healed. Nothing more unless you give it power. Share this with 3 people who have helped you heal. I love you guys. I'll talk to you in a few days.
Don't forget to subscribe and share with your friends, because we're just going to keep going bigger and better places together, and I love that about us. Talk to you in a few days.